Cloud. Hello, everyone, and happy Thursday. Thank you for being here. It's great to see everyone in the waiting room, now in the live room. We are just getting started here in a minute. Today, talking about all things taking TAK to the streets for large events, live events. If you could, just while you're in here, if possible, to put yourself on mute. That's great. We encourage everyone to have their video on, as it's meant to be a two-way dialogue. The format here is it's going to be hello, I'm Kevin Sofin, your moderator today. And then we have our esteemed guests who are going to talk here a bit, but we're really going to lean into all things TAK for large events and some different case studies that Greg led, as well as Abby and Dale within the IU Little 500. It's great to see people continue rolling in. So all of them are going to do quick intros over here. And then we're going to dive right into presentations. And then about halfway through, we're going to throw it to the crowd. If you got a question, we want to hear it. If you've got a comment, drop it. So feel free to fire up the chat. I'd love to know, where are you calling from? What department are you with? What organization are you with? Please feel free to fire up the chat. This whole event is meant to be a two-way dialogue conversation for you to get value. So without much further ado, again, hello everyone. My name is Kevin Sofin. I run the Smart Firefighting Community. I'm also on the TAK Public Safety Board. And a lot of this is also kind of leading up to the all things CIVTAK, which I'm going to put into a link into the chat. But there is the CIVTAK conference going on in Washington, D.C., November 4, 5, and 6. And there is actually a call for submissions that is still open for another 4 more days. Oh wait, not waiting room, excuse me. Meeting group chat, here we go. So I'm putting that into the chat, and I want everyone to click around, look at those links, and we want you to participate. We want you to attend. There is limited capacity, so a little bit of FOMO here. Make sure you sign up early and often. And now without further ado, I'm gonna kind of do quick intros for everyone, about a minute or less, then we'll jump right in. So if you wanna go Charles, Abby, Dale, and Greg for quick intros. Charles?
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Charles Laird. For all you Star Wars fans, coming to you live from Yavin 4 Rebel Base. I'm based out of Raleigh, North Carolina in real life. I am a fireman by trade. I do work for the state of North Carolina in the First Responder Emerging Technologies Program, and also leading the TAK effort within North Carolina. Thanks, Kevin, for having me.
Thanks, Charles. Dale?
Hello, everyone. Dale Rolfson from the Indianapolis Fire Department. For 38 years with Indianapolis, and been involved in technology since about 1975. And looking forward to chatting today about what we've done with TAK.
Abby?
Hi, I'm Abby Rolfson. I am a Master of Information Science student at Indiana University Bloomington. I've been with the IU Red Lab for about 3 years now, working on situational awareness, digital twins, and yeah, I'm excited to talk about TAK with you guys.
Thanks, Abby. And to round us out, Greg.
Hey everyone, Greg Albrecht, thanks for having me. I guess my job title is I'm a National Security Event Solutions Architect for Parsons, but my public safety hat is I'm a BLS RC here, a medic here in San Francisco, and I've been working in public safety and telecom since Hurricane George back in the 90s. So I have a lot of experience in disaster response, emergency response, and I can act as a first responder. And types of environments I typically work in are austere environments where we need to bring in comms and data. So TAK was a natural fit for us in those environments. Over.
So today we're talking about TAK, but not just specifically TAK as it pertains to large events and situational awareness amongst different jurisdictions and teams, and how TAK with different end user devices can be plugged in to help operators make better decisions. So for those of you that aren't familiar with TAK, this is maybe a TAK 2.0 class, not quite the 101 class, but we're going to have all these different presentations go. Greg, then Abby and Dale, then Charles. And then, so please kind of right now, listen, write questions, fire up the chat and share links, and please keep your audio off, and then halfway through, we're going to switch to open communication. So just ask that everyone remains respectful of everyone. You know, we got just about 35 people in here, so not a huge group, but nonetheless, just asking for that. So Greg, we'll throw it to you first to give us a little overview of your experience with TAC and large events. I am going to spotlight you, so you're going to get big for everyone. And now the floor is yours. And thank you, Greg, again for your time today. And you're on mute, Greg. So 2020 of you.
Yeah, of course. Just making sure my slides are up.
Yep, we still see your Google Deck if you want to like share the slideshow things full screen, or if it's just like, that's fine.
Yeah, no, I know better.
Yeah.
All right, hey everyone. So yeah, thanks to Kevin and the crew for having me come on and talk. I don't want to say I was the first person to use TAC at a special event, but I've certainly promoted the fact that we use TAC at special events enough. So what I want to go through is, just a quick overview of what TAC is for those of you that are just sort of coming into this fold, and then a little bit about what it does, like how we use it, and then a couple of case studies of where we've used it, how we've used it, and some integration ideas that have come out of that. Let me bang through this real quick. I have like the memory of a goldfish, so if I'm interrupted, I'll forget. Let me bang through this real quick, and if we have questions, we'll hit the questions on the back end. So I'm going to proceed. Oh, someone's chatting. Just make sure I'm not missing anything here. Like
asking if your slides will be available.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. No problem. Yeah, we'll make those available.
And also, I wasn't sure if you wanted to do full screen. I still can just see, your window. But if it's like this, that's fine. If you just let me know.
If I click the button, bad things happen.
Okay, don't click the button.
Don't click the button. Okay. So TAC itself, right? Where does TAC? Oh, sorry, I jumped ahead. Where does TAC come from? So TAC was initially developed as a Department of Defense software suite. It was adopted, 4 or 5 years ago by Homeland Security units, specifically tactical units. So think of like BORTAC, those types of units. But as it sort of populated through DHS, it became adopted by public safety agencies and other organizations. And most recently, it was adopted nationwide by the Forest Service. So we very quickly went from, a DoD only type program to something that's been adopted nationally and then locally in agencies around the country. But what it gives us is, a single application, a single pane of glass that provides maps, right? We all like maps, chat, right? Interactive chat, voice, video, all of that in a single application, right? And it works across all the different platforms. We're talking Android, Apple, Windows, web, right? There's nowhere that TAC can't touch you, for better or worse. And then again, right, like this was developed for DoD tier 1 type units. So think like your Navy SEALs, your Delta, those types of units, right? It was adapted for folks in those environments, folks under those type of stressful duress environments, which means that as first responders ourselves, firefighters, EMTs, medics, police, we have something that we know has been stress tested in one of the most extreme environments or some of the most extreme environments. And the best part about it is it's free, right? You already paid for it, right? This is free government off-the-shelf software, which sounds counterintuitive, but here we are in 2025, right? TAC, you can download it for free. You can get started for free. And I like to tell people the only thing it costs you is your time, right? The time to sort of onboard, on ramp, and get connected and get up to speed on it. And I think other folks on the forum can attest to that. So where has it been used? Everywhere, right? You name it, we've used it there, right? Everything from State of the Union, inaugurations, Democratic National Convention, Republican National, World Series, Super Bowl, any national security event, right? NSSE event, national security event where we might have multiple agencies operating together, we've used TAC as that common operating picture, right? What does a common operating picture look like in these environments? Well, here you go, right? Dots on a map, which sounds simplistic, but really the power that this gives you is now I can see where everyone's at. And not just my units, but my partner units, my mutual aid units. And because this is a fully interactive application, I can put more than people in there, right? I can start pumping in call data, drone data, video data, CAD data, and have that all in one interface, right? Where I can use it. Where is this beneficial, right? Like, what's the point in having all of that there? My favorite use case of all, you're walking in the wrong direction, right? I have a single screen that can give both me, the responder, as well as my dispatch or operations managers, my who, what, where, and what, all in the same place, right? If we examine like radio traffic, if you think about the traffic you hear on your radio all the time, the two most common things you hear are, where are you? And what are you doing? Right. And by using TAK, I've answered two of those questions right away. I can see where my units are at. I can see what they're doing. Right. And again, like my favorite thing I've heard a dispatcher tell a unit is you're walking in the wrong direction. Right. Which sounds trivial, but like as a medic, like that's time saved, which is lives saved. Right. I can get onto the X quicker now. Right. And that's just a minor part of what's available here. And when I talk about adding capacity, we're literally adding capacity, right? If you think about the radio channels that you operate on, right? I have a radio channel for my dispatch, right? And I might have 15 units on that radio channel. So if you can imagine over the course of a period, like I can only communicate so much on that channel. And if there's a lot of back and forth, people asking where each other are at, passing communications notes, I'm monopolizing that channel. But now with TAK, I've added capacity, right? I've increased the overall bandwidth for my operation. And now not only have I increased my voice channel capacity, but now I have this complete new data capacity, where I can pass all these types of communication messages over TAK and free up my radio channel for things that actually require a person in the loop. So what does this communication look like in TAK? Well, I have chat, right? Just regular text messaging within my group, and I can do this one-to-one or one to a group. And there's also plugins that allow push to talk within chat using Wave and ESChat and Zello and all those different ICE and all those different programs. Like I can now use this as a push to talk over cellular device in addition to my radio, or as an alternative to my radio, right? And when I talk about the other data feeds that we can get in here, we can pull in data from all sorts of disparate sources and display it in the same interface. This is an example here of us pulling in Rapid SOS, which is smartphone location information. When you call 911, Rapid SOS is a clearinghouse for that information. Well, now we can drop that information directly into TAK, right? We can send rescuers directly to where the call is coming from. No more, grasping around in the dark trying to figure out where this caller is at. Like I can vector directly to that call, right? Get right on the X. And then we're also able to pull in not just regular maps, not just the regular Google and Apple maps we might be used to, but in the event of a special event, we're going to have a special event map. Where are all the stages, where are all the tents, where are all the food vendors? Well, I can pull that and I can geo-reference that and use that as my base map within TAK, right? So now I've given my responders complete operational visibility, because now they see the map that we're actually speaking to and not a generic map, right? And then, beyond the mapping part of it, there's all sorts of other interactive components in TAK, right? We can pull in drone and counter drone systems. So if we're working in an environment where we're using unmanned systems, we now have access to those systems. And that's just not the location of the systems, but we can get sensor information from those drones, right? Video feeds, ISR feeds, where is our sensor point of interest pointing? What's our field of view, right? If you can imagine responding to a call and you have a drone that's doing overwatch for you, knowing exactly where the drone is pointing its camera is going to help you vector to that call a lot quicker. And now we have that full interactivity within TAK. And just to blow this up at a larger scale, right? We spoke to how the Forest Service has rolled this out. This is a picture of a complete operation within TAK. We have our operational map for our forest fire. We have all of our aircraft, our air attack, our VLATs, our firefighting aircraft, our rescue aircraft, all in one screen, all in TAK, giving us complete, ground to air visibility for our operation. And then, just to close this off, right, we could pull in other video feeds as well. In California, we have a system called Alert Wildfire. We're able to not only pull in all of those cameras in TAK, but again, show the field of view and the bearing of those cameras. So if I'm trying to vector to a call, if I'm getting smoke up on the ridge, I know exactly where my cameras are pointing now. I know where my units are at, and I can vector them directly to that call. And then just a quick case study. We've used this at pretty large events recently. We have a big music festival down in Southern California that spans all of April. We rolled it out there last year for the first time. We grew from a couple of users to over 100 daily active users just within a day, right? People adopted it, saw the power of it, and ran with it. We were running cellular devices. We were using LoRa wireless trackers, and it moved beyond public safety, right? It wasn't just public safety. We had users in every department using TAK for location, and I mean every department: electrical, sanitation, water, gates. We're all on there. They all needed a map. They all needed a way of visualizing that. And my favorite one that I'll leave you with is this event is so large. This festival is so large that they have their own internal shuttle system, right? To get you from one end, I mean, for staff, right? To get you from one end to the other. Well, they have these bus stops, and you just wait at the bus stop in the Palm Springs 100-degree heat, hoping that a bus comes. Well, we solved for that by putting TAK on the bus. So at each bus stop, there's a QR code now. And if you scan that QR code, it puts you in TAK and shows you where the shuttle bus is in real time against the event map. So not only, again, like we've moved beyond public safety, and we've moved beyond responders, we've moved to just regular staff using TAK to track their staff shuttle so they can get back and forth on the site. So really you're going to start with the seed and then expand out from there. And I think that's the power of this is once you're familiar with it, once you know what you can do with it, it's really easy to start slapping it on everything and move up from there. But with that, yeah, I'll leave with that. It's let me just show a slide here on how to get started with TAK, and I'll hand it back to you, Kevin. Thanks. Over to you, Kevin.
Greg, thank you so much. Very informative and amazing to hear that use case of the buses. I want to learn more about that. So we're going to keep firing through. Dale and Abby, we're going to throw it to you now to talk about all things IU, Little 500. So I'm going to spotlight both of you now like we did with Greg. I'm not sure if, hold on here. Abby, you're going to be large here for everyone alongside your dad. Here you go. And now throwing it to the ultimate 1-2 punch, Dale and Abby. The floor is yours now.
All right. Well, I can explain basically what the IU Red Lab has been doing. So at Indiana University, there is this event called the Little 500. This is a famous bike race, and basically the IU Red Lab has it has conducted multiple TAK testing, multiple deployments of TAK in multiple large events. So this would include football games. This includes the Little 500 as well. And basically the gist of what we're doing with our research is that we are exploring how open source tools and interoperability channels, so P25 radio and TAK, how those can enhance the situation awareness of personnel in an EOC. So yeah, Dale, do you have anything to add?
Yeah. Obviously, one of the big things that we've seen is it's not just using TAK, but using it with the right network. So obviously your infrastructure, your cellular infrastructure is important. And FirstNet obviously is a backbone that we like to use, as well as the T-Mobile preemptive priority service and Verizon preemptive priority service. And what we found in the testing in these first couple of events with Indiana University for both the IU versus Michigan and IU versus Purdue football games is that the consumer quality of cellular service just doesn't work when you're in a large scale event. They just don't support it. But if you've got preemptive priority service offered by the cell carriers or FirstNet, we were able to get the service that you would expect and see our units moving around. So then obviously doing this with the Little 5, and then we've also done it with the Indianapolis 500 Festival Parade, which is, I believe, the third largest parade in the country. And If I can just show a couple of pictures here for you. So this is kind of mustering right before the event occurred. And we were utilizing some WearTAK by Ascent Integrated Technologies, and also had some Sonum cell phones. So here's the command van by Indianapolis Metropolitan Police Department and combined effort with Indianapolis Fire Department. This is an overview of FDIC. You can see that we can also put floor plans on there. So in conjunction with Indiana University through the EyeSight project and San Francisco Communications, we're able to overlay floor plans into a TAC environment. And the goal would be to get these three-dimensional as well, with wireframe where you can see each floor and be able to turn floors on and off in the TAC environment. So that's our next step. Hopefully that's some cool stuff for you to think about there. So Abby might have some stuff to show as well on that. I don't know if you're prepared for that, Abby.
I do have something to add about Red Lab's capabilities in terms of not only providing that real-time situation awareness, but what can also be done with the data from TAC. We can take out the tracks and we can do some after-action data analysis, right? So we can replay those tracks. There's a potential to evaluate the accuracy of, for example, indoor tracking signals, as well as seeing where the signal may have dropped off during a large event. So, for example, at the 500 Festival Parade, we had a few devices that did drop out. And what we learned from that is that those devices dropped out because people were turning off the devices. And that's why we were losing the signal.
Yep.
So that meant that what we can do to remedy that could be, for example, putting the devices in kiosk mode so that whoever's being tracked isn't messing with the devices.
Great. Thank you, Abby and Dale. We're going to now continue this conversation and moving on with large events and also kind of double clicking into all things Low 500 and bringing in Charles, who I know was also at this Little 500. And then after Charles is done, we're going to kind of encourage it to be two-way dialogue. So get your virtual hand up after this and kind of start firing up questions in the chat. Love seeing it be active right now. So after Charles, it'll be kind of open to the community. And Charles, I'm going to spotlight you now, and the floor is yours.
All right. Thanks, Kevin. Yeah, just to add on to what Abby and Chief Ralston were talking about with the Little 500. First, very honored to be able to go out and help them. It was a really interesting event, and there is nothing little about it. So not really anything I'd ever been a part of before. My corner of the TAC polygon is very similar to Greg's with using TAC at large events. This is something that Abby, Chief Rolfson, Ari, and several others within the Red Lab, they really wanted to use this at the Little 500. And so what I hope to offer to the group was just the little experience that I had in deploying TAC at these larger events. I was chuckling throughout the event kind of internally because I saw myself 3 years ago when I was trying to pitch TAC to all the responders at the state fair, and we got a lot of interesting looks like, what? Why do you need me to carry a phone? But I think that one, you have to start somewhere, however small it is, because small victories lead to big victories. And I think that the other interesting part, kind of after the fact in the follow-up to the event, was Abby had mentioned that she's part of that information systems and information science concentration at IU. There was several other members of the team that was really kind of digging into the data. That was not something that I had ever thought about before, and what we might be able to glean from that. it was an interesting event in comparison to the state fair in that a lot of my users are roaming around a lot more. And so I think that some of the groundwork that they've laid being able to interrogate some of that data and see if there is anything that could be pulled from that, that may be interesting to try out at this year's state fair. So in regards to the Little 500, I had an absolute blast. It was really great being able to hang out with the Red Lad team and all the responders in Bloomington. Quickly switching to the state fair, for those of you that don't know, our North Carolina State Fair is the largest public event we have in North Carolina. We have approximately just under 1 million visitors every year, and we have about 150 responders that help us out. The core team is several state law enforcement officers that actually run the event in support of a lot of security staff and as well as administrative staff that are all state employees. But the bulk of the responders are from outside of the jurisdiction. We do have fire and EMS that are local to the area in Raleigh, but a majority of the law enforcement partners that come in to provide, that strong law enforcement presence roaming around the event, as well as working the security gates, keeping all of the attendees safe. They are all from all over, and lots of them every single year are brand new. And so one of the problems that we tried to solve that apparently had been persistent in the past is this idea of, well, how do I tell the dispatcher where I am in an event that I'm not used to, right? We do have some landmarks such as ride numbers and things like that. But the example I like to use is, hey, we need EMS to respond to the Ferris wheel. Well, which one? The big one. Well, there's 3 big ones. So tell me which one it is, right? And so there was this bit of a disconnect in what the responders were seeing out in the field, what they were calling in, and the dispatchers were having to get really creative and trying to figure out kind of where they were. So one of the core problems that TAC solves is the being able to see where that dismounted responder is. So while I probably have some screenshots and some other things to be able to show, it is very similar to Greg's, and he did a great job showing TAC at special events. But that's all to say that anytime that you have an event that may be going on in your jurisdiction, it's multi-agency, multi-jurisdictional in nature. Start thinking about outside of your geopolitical boundaries, those invisible barriers that maybe politics and/or technology that you currently use today. TAC is really kind of breaking a lot of those walls and really providing a lot of value, especially with something that doesn't cost you really anything extra. The biggest hurdle is just having a device to being able to see where that most important resource is, our human beings and our responders on the ground. And I really like what Greg and some of the others in our community are doing outside of those non-traditional responders. And that's really where I see, especially in a large event like a hurricane or an earthquake or anything like that, that's really where that power is let's bring everybody together so we can be collaborative. I think everyone knows I could talk for hours, so I'm going to stop there and send it back to Kevin. Looking forward to the questions.
I like it when Charles talks for hours, for the record. So that was awesome, everyone. And actually, we are also joined by yours truly, Ken Rabin, who just joined. And Ken, if I know you were just getting back from some appointment, if you're able to, before we jump in, just tell us a little bit about who you are, and then also CIVTAK, and maybe anything else you want to add here before we open the floor. You're kind of the floor, the conscious first, yours, Ken. So.
Oh, good heavens, you're putting me on the spot.
I am. I'm volunteering.
Yeah, Ken Rabin. I'm an industry analyst. Been a volunteer firefighter in Montgomery County, Maryland since I think the Flintstones were running cars with their feet. But I've been passionate about improving the situation awareness tools, and I see TAC as being really the force multiplier that we need to be moving towards in the future. So last year, I hosted a lovely event in the Washington, D.C. area called CIVTAK, and it was an attempt to bring together the community, the TAC community, people in public safety, folks in the industry who are doing innovation to drive TAC forward, end users. It was a fantastic face-to-face opportunity for education, fellowship, networking. We're going to be doing it again this year, slightly different, however. There is a nonprofit called TAC PS. I think Charles Laird has probably heard of TAC PS. This is an attempt to provide a formal gathering to propel TAC progress in the public safety domain. So the nonprofit is now taking responsibility for the civilian TAC conference and exhibition that will be happening on an annual basis. For 2025, we're doing this in Washington, D.C. again, but we've located an amazing facility near the White House that is a conference room with a lot of digital capability. So one of the big goals this year is to capture some of the great educational content that goes out digitally so that we can repurpose it and make it accessible to people who can't travel to Washington. So the website's set up. I've just finished putting together a package so we can get financial support from vendors, from organizations that want to contribute to the education of the TAC community. And the event is planned for November 4, 5, and 6. Check www.civtakconf.com. I'll put that in the chat. In addition, there's an outstanding call for contributions for folks who would like to be presenting and helping educate the TAC community. Now's your opportunity to put a proposal out that can be evaluated and programmed in. I fear we're getting a lot of great proposals in. So I fear we're not going to be able to accommodate everybody in the 2.5 days that we have, but we'll do our best to prioritize the most impactful presentations. But please check the website. If you want to present, put an application in so it's in the database and it gets evaluated. Kevin, that's kind of what I have.
Thank you, Ken. Well, so everyone put down your calendar, and now I want to continue to open it up. I did see a quick virtual hand from you, Brian Frieders. Oh, I guess you can do this, and it officially does that. So Brian, I know if you're willing, I know you lead some of these large scale events. If you're willing to maybe come on camera or just talk for a second on your experience and any questions or comments you had from the speakers today.
Yeah, thanks, Kevin. I'm out and about, so I'll spare you. I've got a face for radio, so I'll just spare you the pictures. So my name is Brian Frieders. I am the Director of Health and Safety for Red Rock Entertainment, which is a Live Nation company. My role is to oversee some of the large festivals, mostly in the West Coast, a few in the East Coast, and then obviously a lot of large scale events, including FIFA and some of the other sporting events that have happened around the world. But I've heard of this before. I retired as the fire chief from Pasadena, California. So we had that little parade called the Rose Parade and a few other little events we do there once in a while. So I'm always interested to see the innovation and some of the cool things that have come up. And I've seen this before, but I haven't really spent a lot of time understanding it. I really applaud the efforts of the folks that presented it. I mean, excellent presentations. I think that this is a really valuable tool. I think one of the comments on one of the slides from, it sounds like you were at Coachella or Stagecoach, like, why are we not using this? And I know all those guys, and this is where this conversation has happened before. I'm very interested to see how this is intriguing the other event providers. I do feel like in the festival world, there's been this archaic method by which they're managed. And now I think what's happened by virtue of being involved is we're suffusing incident management principles into the overall management and deployment of the public safety response for these things. And I think that's the responsible thing to do. I think TAC is certainly a valuable tool that can be vetted and probably implemented a lot more effectively, especially in the context of the global threat that exists with open air events that aren't really governed well by fire prevention and life safety codes. I think that there's a tremendous responsibility for those that are actually doing these events in their jurisdictions, that are permitting these events, to ensure they have the most robust opportunity to provide that element of public safety, which again burdens the jurisdiction, but also burdens the promoter to make sure that we're doing it right. And so anything that we can do that's technologically innovative, that's going to assist with that and make our capabilities more widespread and more effective is very interesting to me, which is why I'm very pleased that I was able to join this call today. As it relates to TAC in and of itself, how are the calls for service? Are they received in a separate database and then pushed into TAC manually? Is there an API that goes into them? How does that specifically work? And we can do that offline, or if that's a question for the group that would be a valuable resource to answer, I'm happy to take that question or answer that question now, or ask that question now and get a response. Otherwise, I'll just shut up and mute myself again.
That's what I'm talking about, Brian. Charles, Greg, Abby or Dale, you want to take a crack at that? Charles?
Greg, you want to talk about what you did in terms of that?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I would say the differentiator here, and maybe this is one of the gaps with TAK itself. TAK isn't a replacement for a CAD. It's not really out of the box meant to tie into a CAD. That's not to say that, again, like we haven't proven that you can tie it into a computer aided dispatch system, or in the events world, right, an incident management system. But what we've done is the biggest problem with festivals and special events typically, and again, Charles, you'll probably speak, you already spoke to this. I think everyone spoke to this. Where's the main stage? But what I mean is, what is the latitude and longitude of the main stage? Because when we're talking about TAK, when we're talking about maps generally, we're thinking like in a Cartesian space. We're thinking of X and Y, latitude and longitude. Well, the hot dog cart or the hot dog tent or the main stage or back of house or the mixer, that doesn't mean anything in the real world. So the biggest challenge we have in these environments is actually mapping those locations, georeferencing those locations to somewhere on an XY plane. Aside from that, getting the CAD information or the IMS information, all we need from that is location information and call description. So we've built a bunch of customs integrations to do that. I'll give an example. One of the IMSs we use at a lot of these festivals, and I'm sure Brian, you've run into this, is 24/7 or ISS 24/7. That outputs emails that have information. We parse those emails, put them on a TAK map. For things like rapid SOS integration, they have like a JSON API, like a web-based API that we talk to. Other systems have other methods of pumping that data in. And again, like sometimes it's going to depend on the event. Sometimes it's going to depend on the municipality. Sometimes it's going to depend on what kind of CAD or IMS system they're using. Typically, those are custom, but once we've done it, we're plugged in for the year. So the example that we gave, once we did that integration 1 or 2 years ago for the event down in Palm Springs, it was the same integration year over year. So we just had to do that. We had to make that lift one time, if that makes sense. Back over to you. Go ahead, Charles.
Yeah, and Greg, just wanted to add on too. So outside the special event space a little bit, there's been a lot of the similar questions. Well, I already use something that maybe creating all of this. How do I do it? And so in my experience at the fire department, trying to integrate in with a mutual aid agency in a completely different system, even though they're just one county over, all I'm doing now is I'm grabbing that CAD data that's actually being pushed to Active 911. Active 911 is already kind of parsing out some of it, so it actually makes it really easy on the next step in order to parse it even further. So all that to say is that even if there are some of these specialized systems that different festivals or anything, and even down to like a Google form and being able to be able to interrogate that, the idea is that if it has an X and a Y and we call it something, it can be very easily brought into TAK. And I know Greg didn't mention it, but Greg does build a lot of open source tools that all of us in the community use. And so Node-RED is one of those that he's been building upon, and that's where we're doing a lot of those integrations. So something we could talk about for hours, but just to kind of give you a landscape.
Thanks all. All right, so Brian, did you want to add anything?
No, that's great. Thank you for the information. I'm certain that we'll end up corresponding with some folks here after this call. Thank you.
Great, Brian. Thank you. Well, I've seen a couple people who've come off camera. Looking at Dave Robinson, you got your hand up. So again, if you want, put your physical or digital hand up and fire up the chat. Dave, comment, question for the crew, and what do you got? Robertson. You're on mute, Dave. Oh, timeout. Okay, go to someone else. I think that's what that means. No problem. All right, well, I see Jacob with a K and Mr. Coggeshell. Jacob, did you want to add any comments, context, 2 cents?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Jacob. I'm Dutch. I used to be working on a startup based on TAK to bring that to event organizers, not just public safety, and that failed somewhat spectacularly. But we did try it at a couple of events here in the Netherlands as well, even on smallest town squares. TAK was a great help, even if there was just 2 people around, because town square here is 400 by 200 yards, but even then it's filled with people, with fences, with stages and stuff like that. And especially Greg's stuff and writings has helped us out tremendously. So thanks to that. I did have a question for the group. We had the greatest difficulty getting people to onboard at the events, especially if you have a department where there are 1 or 2 people who are like, yes, I would like to use this, but it doesn't provide that much value to them if their 8 or 10 colleagues don't actually want to use it. How do you get the holdouts over the line to that this is beneficial to them too? Mute myself here.
Yeah, you know, this is the K factor in a network, right? Like if we're, I always say like a communication system's only effective if everyone's on the communication system, right? Like that's the only way it's going to be. Otherwise, it just goes in your pocket and you defer to something else. So there are a couple ways, right? Make onboarding as easy as possible, right? You've already experienced this, obviously, but like, you know, the newer version, TAC as of 5, I don't know, 2 or so, supports QR codes, which is great. Like we used to have to hand jam, you know, usernames and passwords, which if you've ever set up a new phone, you know that pain, right? Like imagine doing that 100, 150 times at an event. Onerous, right? QR codes, boom, boom, boom. I onboarded 100 some odd people at an event a couple weeks ago, all using QR codes. Didn't have to touch a single phone. Fantastic, right? The other is sometimes you're just going to have to bring devices, right? Sometimes you're just going to need a cache of Sonom phones, Samsung phones, whatever it is, right? Because if the goal is to make this mission successful, you need to get the devices out of the way. You need to get that out of the way. You need to get the hardware out of the way of the mission, right? The technical part needs to get out of the way of the mission and let you do it. Sometimes you just got to drag phones with you. So, you know, get a cache of phones, have them all set up and ready to go. And that way, when you run into that one person who's like, hey, I still use a flip phone, you could be like, hey, buddy, have I got news for you? Here's a phone, stick it in your pocket. We're good to go, right? But again, there's still the long tail of like the people who never do it. Or as Abby pointed out, someone turned off their phone. At that point, you've got to get into policy and procedure and what your SOP is for those. So there's a bunch of ways of attacking that. But yeah, I feel your pain for sure.
I've had, just to add on that, I've had it both ways. And we also run into, especially cultural events that tend to attract older volunteers who are somehow not confident in using their own phones. And especially carrying a second phone is like, nope, I don't want to do that. But yeah, we keep trying multiple things. And what you're saying makes sense. Just was hoping for the magic bullet here.
Carrying 2 phones sucks. I think we all know that. So I'm gonna throw it to Alex Gorsuch next. You guys virtual hand up, and then Dave, if your audio is working, I'll throw it to you after Alex.
Hey, just wanted to, you know, kind of double click on something that was touched upon, but it's a really crucial and important thing. And Greg addressed this slightly, like TAC is free because everyone except for Jacob already paid for it. There's probably some other international folks here, but as US citizens, provided we all, you know, love paying taxes, right? If we all pay our taxes, we all already paid for TAC. So, you know, there's this perception that, oh, TAC is free, so it must not be very good. Well, according to Kotak's estimate, over $500 million has already gone into TAC. You point at me another COP that has $500 million put into it and is battle tested and works, and this is my other point, works regardless of device, regardless of connectivity, regardless of operating system. If you have a device which is connected to another device in some way, shape, or form, whether it runs, you know, Windows and you can run WinTAC, or it runs iOS and you can use the vastly superior in every way TAC-aware over iTAC, runs, of course, the best Android, and you can run ATAC, or even if you just have a screen and a browser and you want to run WebTAC or Kotak's CloudTAC offering, as long as the device has a screen and has connectivity to other device, it will display, it will work. That is incredibly powerful. Now you can layer in additional devices like wearables, you can layer in additional connectivity like Manet radios, like Gotenna, even just use classic LTE, Wi-Fi hotspots, cradle points, whatever, don't matter. But that is incredibly powerful. And nothing else offers that. And that's the kind of robust connectivity and robust use cases needed for any event.
Thanks, Alex. Greg, Charles, Dale, or Abby, anything you want to add on to what Jacob had mentioned or what Alex commented on before I throw it to Chief Dave Robertson?
All right, let's give that a shot. Are we good?
It's working. What do you got for
Okay.
us?
Yeah. Oh, look at that. I even got the only I would get fireworks.
Yes, our friends up north.
So I'm hearing a lot of this sort of being framed in large event and festival contexts. And obviously, wearing the fire hat, I automatically go to maybe not those preset events like a festival where fire might be involved, fire police and other emergency services might be involved. I also think about large scale, like a commercial structure fire, strip mall fire, et cetera, et cetera. But with somewhere around 75% of the departments in North America being 5 stations or less, the decision makers there, the chiefs, the directors of emergency services, and sometimes the assistant chiefs or deputy chiefs of training, their academic bandwidth is pretty stretched. And I'm someone who logged on to something like this, always trying to learn and know, but the conversation is moving at a pace where it quickly outpaced me being that chief that typically resides in a station, in a department that is 5 stations or less. So I'm seeking from anyone that you have on here, Kevin, some level of context for how we would see attack implementation at those scale of events. They can still be large. Small town can still have a strip mall fire, a downtown Main Street fire that involves several buildings. We still have large events that sometimes inhabit, like the Little 500. Well, maybe it took place in Indianapolis. We'll have those styles of events in smaller jurisdictions. Yes, but that's not usually where we reside. So I'm looking for a little input that way.
Yeah, Chief, I'll be happy to take that. My department has 3 stations. We're combination. We're kind of in that transition phase of volunteer supported by paid, now switching from paid to supported by volunteer. The initial reason why I went to look for TAC is that some of the first responder focused solutions that are out there today for call notification, the mapping piece of it was not very reliable. And also there's an expiration time of, well, if I'm on a scene of a 2-hour brush fire, well, I don't get that location anymore because it only lasted for 5 or up to 30 minutes. So what I'm doing is I have Android tablets on all of my trucks. They're all powered, even if they sit in the firehouse for 3 months and not go anywhere. TAC Tracker, one of the other apps within the ecosystem, is running in the background. And so even if that tablet restarts, doesn't update anything like that, TAC Tracker is firing up. And so at any point in time, I'm getting real-time location of all of my trucks as they're responding to the incident. One of the things that I'm finding very challenging is I am having difficulty in showing TAC as a value added to my firefighters because let's be honest, they're hammers looking for nails, right? And so just seeing where the other trucks are, that's not really novel to them. So what I'm trying to do is trying to say, hey, you can see where the EMS helicopters are now. When typically we have to rely on dispatch to dispatch to give us an ETA that might be wildly off. And we're kind of talking with the medics on scene, and they're like, oh, well, if it's 20 minutes away, then we're just going to go by ground. When in reality, by ADSB and seeing that information on TAC, I see that they're 8 minutes away. The other part of that is that I alluded to it earlier. I can't get the locations of mutual aid apparatus through our traditional means, but by grabbing the location from those systems and not having to be integrated into TAC or into CAD, I'm now getting their unit location showing within TAC as well as their calls for service, which we go to. So from a day-to-day standpoint, it's really useful for me, especially when you get those larger events, because it's a little bit like radio programming. If we program up your device to be able to connect to TAC, all the responder has to do, tap it once, throw it in their pocket, and they can respond to the call. If they're already interacting with it via Active 911, First Do, or anything like that, it doesn't take that much more effort to fire up TAC, run it in their pocket, and now for as long as the incident lasts, you as the fire chief or whoever's in IC will be able to see everybody. I hope that helps.
Thanks, Charles. All right, so we got about 11 minutes left. We might go a little bit long, but for the most part, we got 11 minutes. Seeing a nice comment there from Alex. Thank you. Dave Coggeshell, your camera's on. You want to drop? You got a question or a comment you want to drop? And then anyone else too. We've got a couple minutes left, so you're on mute, Dave Coggeshell, if you wanted to say anything.
Oh, hi, Kevin and everybody. I'm just really impressed by this presentation and Kevin's work over the years to bring this community together. I've been involved with floor plans since the early 80s and got involved with first responders 25 years ago or 23 years ago, and common operating picture. Then after the Sandy Hook massacre, I got really interested to put floor plans into the common operating picture with all the problems that entails. But at any rate, my efforts became known as the Eyesight Project, and I was lucky enough to hook up with Indiana University and Indianapolis Fire Department for the first challenge. And so Abigail provided a great apprentice who's now a pro, and she and I built floor plans out for the Muscatatuck first challenge buildings. And since then, we've been concentrating on getting more advanced in our testing and so forth. And so great to hear from everybody today. So I'll throw it back to you, Kevin.
Thanks, David. Yeah, I appreciate all the work that you've done with All Things First. Dale, want to add on to that?
Yeah, I was just going to say, partnerships that we develop in public safety are so important. When you have individuals such as David, and then Indiana University, and being able to put together a test bed and figure out, where are the weak points? What are things that we need to work on and help these companies like Ascent develop their product and make it better for us. They're doing a lot now with the battery life and make some of these devices, wearables, last longer, which is so critical for us. But one of the things, the learning curves that we've all gone through is you got to put the devices in kiosk mode, because firefighters, first responders, they like to play. They get on those devices, and the next thing you know, you're wondering why we don't see squad one or whoever's ambulance one somewhere in the field. Well, it's because they played around with it and they shut the device off accidentally or on purpose, either one. So you got to put them in kiosk mode. I'm excited to see the future here with biometric information and other things that are on the cutting edge that is going to be able to tie in with these wearable devices, and then all come through TAK. So TAK is a tool in the toolbox. It's another way of getting excellent information to decision makers in the incident command post.
Thanks, Dale. And so we got at least 8 more minutes. Charles, did you want to add anything on that? But then also, before Charles, throw to you, I'm looking at you, John Lee, Ken Kempter, Todd Huckshins, whomever. I'm seeing names. Like, would love for you to drop, any thoughts, comments. So Charles, throw it to you, and then anyone else that wants to add anything.
Yeah, I just want to continue to foot stomp what Chief Rolfson was saying. I think also too, we're going to wait to hear kind of the output and after action of the Kerrville flooding in Texas. Texas has a really strong TAK program and probably one of the largest, I would say, non-federal law enforcement deployments of TAK. So Kevin, if you haven't thought about it already, getting the Texas team on a podcast to be able to talk about their experience, pros and cons of TAK and what they went through during that event would be a really good one, because I think several of us in our community are really interested to hear how it all worked. So I really am looking at TAK as really the true interoperability tool and something that we've been missing. And so the foot stop that I want to make is that all of our traditional tools that we use today, TAK is not replacing those, right? Chief Rolfson said it multiple times. It is a tool in the toolbox. It's becoming a bigger and bigger tool for everything that we do. And for those of us that are in the emergency response community within emergency management, I believe in relationships and partnerships because it's all about people. It's our most important resource. When we send them out into harm's way to go do what the great work that they do, we need to tell them that we have their back. And that way that they know that they feel safe. And in the event that we need to send them resources, we know where they are. TAC is built for disconnected environments. We live this almost every day, whether it's day-to-day operations, going inside buildings, or dropping off of the cell network because you've gone down into a cell hole, or responding to any of these types of events. So really truly look at it as that interoperability tool, and I would highly suggest anybody in the call that hasn't given it a look, please do, and reach out to any of the folks for any questions. So thanks.
Hey, Charles. All right, John Lee, I saw you came off camera. Throwing it to you. Thoughts,
Yeah.
comments?
Hey, Kevin. Hey, team. Just this team and the team around TAC, this is the marketing team. So it's really to understand that for the people that are just getting into TAC. There's no big corporation behind it. It is the people in this call and several other calls and around the country that are driving the use of TAC. It's needed. I'm the statewide interoperability coordinator for the state of Washington. I'm looking at it from a statewide deployment standpoint. I want to create the platform, the statewide deployment of TAC, similar to COTAC, similar to what they've done in Texas, similar to what they've done in North Carolina, and utilize what the lessons learned that they have come up with. So anybody in the state of Washington wants to get onto the platform, they have an easy on ramp, and the support behind that. Because in my opinion, what I've seen over the years since I've been introduced to TAC way back on Wildfire with Eric Aislinn, it's seeing the dots on the map and those dots moving around is the selling point for the folks that need to be able to track their people on the ground. Yes, getting onto as Alex mentioned earlier, getting onto the platform, getting it onto two devices on your own Wi-Fi network, that's huge. But it's really not, let's say, sexy enough to go to a BC or a fire chief and say, hey, look at this. And for them to be able to visually wrap their brain around it, they need to be able to see more dots on a map. I'm on the North Carolina tax server, and I always scroll over to North Carolina and see what these guys are doing over here, and it clicks. So figure out how to get onto a server. There are several ways to do that, and just get involved and start learning.
Thanks, John. I got Ken Rabin, and then we're gonna throw it to Dave. We'll hit the top of the hour. If you guys have to leave, leave. But Ken, you first, then Dave Eberly, and then we'll start to wrap it up with final comments.
Yeah, so I see some important opportunities with the FIFA events that are coming. We had some this year, but we've got many more next year, as well as Los Angeles 2028 with the Olympics. Something I'd like to attempt to do is to pull in the companies that are doing venue design. So there are the organizations that map out these extensive venues. I saw them at the Paris 2024 Olympics, and I think it may be helpful in the coming months to reach out proactively to them to see how we can ingest that information into tax systems. I also hope that the LA 2028 team can be engaged and educated about TAC in that context. I've already had some discussions with Deloitte Touche, which is the contractor that LA 28 organizing committee is engaged with. Tying this in for interoperability with the local public safety agencies, I think has high value. And to make this a community effort where it's both public safety and the organizing committees working together, I think it will yield the biggest benefits. So it's aspirational on my part. Hopefully in the next couple of months, we can get some progress in that realm. Thank you.
Thanks, Ken. Dave Eberly.
What's up, Kevin?
What's up?
To piggyback off what John Lee was saying, I think from my standpoint, I think we should be engaging the SWICs, which is a statewide interagency operation, or gosh, I can't think of the word. John, help me out. To being able to put something more than just radio in the hands of individual users or whoever's in that state, as well as being able to, if you have to cross state boundaries, having something that will work a lot better than just having like 4 or 5 different interop channels. Thanks, John.
Statewide interoperability coordinator.
Yes. Thanks, John. I was losing my mind there for a second.
Say that 5 times fast.
Yeah, exactly. So that you can have something that's not, the biggest thing folks has, forgot to say in this presentation is your PACE plan, primary, alternate, contingency, and emergency. What is your PACE plan in regards to your state fair or your big events or your small events? How does TAC work in that? How does your radios work in that? How does your communications in that perspective? If one goes down, where does the other one come up? As well as talking to Ken, with those big events like the big events like in Paris or the LA Games, where's the PACE plan? TAC is good with PACE plan because it doesn't require one specific technology. It can go in, satellite, it can go cell, it could go radio, it could go, man it can do itself. If you have multiple devices, just connected, they'll connect to each other. So having that capability in that arena can go, hey, this is what we can do. It's something. And the other side of the fence, and I was talking to Amos about this earlier, is return on investment costs. Your radio system is going to be, thousands of dollars to implement your radio systems, etc. Whereas a cell phone, if you have a cell phone, you can, that cell phone will probably cost, $500 to $1,000 a piece, and it's more, you can do more things with it versus just a radio where you just basically have push to talk. It's not like I said, TAC. They were saying TAC isn't going to replace the radio, no, but it's going to either augment it or move up your PACE plan from your radio being primary to maybe TAC being primary and radio being alternate, that type of thing. So that's kind of what I was, saying from that standpoint. Thoughts, questions?
That's great. Thank you, Dave. And I want to now maybe kind of turn that to the sort of like final closing comments here. I know everyone, top of the hour and mindful of time. So to kind of build on Dave's comments or kind of final comments, I want to let Abby, Dale, Charles, Greg, kind of any sort of final comments, mic drops, whatever. Maybe we'll go Charles, Dale, Abby, Greg to kind of round us out here. Charles?
All right, thanks, Kevin. I appreciate everyone joining. This is a very collaborative community. We're all in it together. We've probably heard the buzz phrase "one team, one mission." We have a lot of really interesting phrases that a lot of folks have in our small community. But I think really the thing is that we finally have something that is an interoperability tool that we don't have to pay for. I really want to foot stomp that, right? So AJ likes to say, "Be brave to suck at something new." It is a bit of an interesting tool to go down, but I really do believe in the power of it and look forward to the future. Thanks, Kevin, for having me on.
Thanks, Charles. Dale?
Yeah. One thing I'd like to bring up that I hadn't touched on a lot is FirstNet. And, here's a network that was designed for us. And not all of us are using it. I can tell you that in my testing in Indianapolis, the FirstNet network has worked the best. It's been the most reliable for us. Now, obviously, TAC can work in austere environments as well, but I think that everyone should start considering using the FirstNet infrastructure.
Thank Dale. Abby?
Yeah, I like to repeat something that Dale said earlier, which is stressing the importance of partnerships between public safety and academia, because on the academia side, we can provide, for example, evaluating technologies like TAC, providing that testing environment, providing that way to introduce certain technologies to various public safety partners and get a feel for it.
Well said. And yeah, Red Lab is a great opportunity of a .org.edu institutional partner that's kind of a Swiss Army knife trying to do work with different partners. So if you're looking for a company or an organization to help go after opportunities and proposals, Abby Red Lab is your conduit there. So final, Greg, to round us out here, whether you want to talk about that meme you just posted or anything in general, what do you got?
I mean, I'd like to say to folks, we're not trying to force you to make a decision or to bifurcate your operation between something else or TAC. We're saying something else and TAC, right? So start considering that as you're thinking about what tools you're going to utilize, what systems you're going to deploy, what vendors you're going to integrate with. Start forcing them into that conversation, right? Hey, does your system support TAC? Can I tie it into TAC? Can I input data from TAC? Can I take data and stick it out into TAC? I say all of that because your day-to-day operations today might be using some other situational awareness system. And just like ICS, or just like incident management, you don't have to use ICS. You just need an incident management system, right? You just need a situational awareness system. However, does your situational awareness system talk to TAC? Why? Because the president's going to play golf in your backyard next week. What are you going to do about it, right? How are you going to connect into that environment? You got the Olympics, FIFA World Cup, the 250th anniversary of the country. Yay us. LA Olympics, all of these big events that are coming up where you're going to need to integrate with other agencies. They speak TAC. Do you speak TAC? I'll leave you with that.
Mic drop. I got nothing left else to say. I do love that term besides the don't be afraid to suck at something new, but the and platform, TAC and these other tools. So once again, thank you everyone for staying a few minutes over. Check out CIVTAK. We're going to be doing another one of these in August, September, October, 3 more. So I'll add you to the email list if you want to unsubscribe to say stop. But thanks again for everyone the time. Shout out Greg, Charles, Abby, and Dale, especially for your time and expertise today. If you got any questions, hit me up. My LinkedIn's there. You got my email, and look forward to chatting again soon, everyone. Have a great day.
Thanks, everyone.
Take care.